Welcome. You're listening to Coffee Break with Purdue Engineering, a podcast production from the Office of Future Engineers at Purdue University. In this podcast series, we discuss the many programs, majors, and opportunities found in Purdue Engineering through conversational interviews with staff, faculty, alumni, and current students. All right. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, Maddie. I guess you want to say a little bit about where you're from, who you are, so everyone else knows as well as us?
Absolutely. Good morning. It's good to be here. I am from Avon, Indiana, which is a suburb of Indianapolis. One of my favorite things about growing up there is it is in Hendricks County, and I did a lot with Hendricks County 4-H. I was a 10-year 4-H member, and I showed rabbits every year. When I was a third grader, I asked my mom if I could get a rabbit, and she did everything she could to talk me out of that. But I was more persistent, and so I eventually was allowed to get a bunny and show it in 4-H. And at the time, I was incredibly shy, like hide behind my parents shy.
Okay.
And the people that know me now know that I'm a yapper, I'm a talker. So being able to show my animal and then talk about my animal and present it in such a way to a judge really kind of helped me develop a lot of leadership skills as well as some basic communication skills to where I no longer feel the need to hide behind a parent when I'm talking to people now, which is great.
That's awesome because your parent is not here.
Yes.
And then what exactly is the 4-H program for anyone who might not know?
Absolutely. So 4-H is a national program run by the U.S. government, and then different states will the different states kind of run it kind of up depending on how each state it is. It's got a huge presence in Indiana and especially in tandem with Purdue. 4-H is a lot of where I got my first exposure to Purdue because if you do extra activities with them, there's opportunity to come to like a summer camp at Purdue, which I got to do twice, which was a lot of fun. And then 4-H really used to be a lot of the emphasis in agriculture, but now it's really agriculture and anything else you're interested in, from sewing, cooking, baking, whatever. It's really to emphasize leadership skills in youth by embodying the 4 H's, which are head, heart, hands, and health. And then how do you better that to continue your leadership for your community and your country as well?
Wow, that is beautiful.
That's awesome.
And I guess, my next question was, what was your journey like getting to Purdue?
Absolutely. So I kind of knew I wanted to go to Purdue. My parents both went there. I had a bunch of family that went to Purdue. It was kind of like the dream school, if you will, carry on the legacy. And I was really interested in the environment. I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I love camping. Basically, I would live outdoors if it was feasible. Right now, it's not. I do need to do some computer work every once in a while. So I really was exploring what an environmental science degree was going to look at when my mom gently encouraged me to explore what engineering could look like. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of thought she was crazy. I could not envision myself as an engineer. I think at the time I had a very stereotypical picture of what an engineer was in my head. And I didn't fit into that picture. So I could never see myself in that realm. And then after taking a look to explore what jobs looked like in environmental engineering, well, after realizing environmental engineering was a career field, there was a lot of stuff clicked. It's like, well, I love science, I love math, I love problem solving, and I love problem solving for the sake of application, because that's what engineering is. It's applied science. So science is great, but I want to do something with it. So being able to not only enjoy science, not only enjoy the application, but enjoy that science and application in the field of environmental impact for the environment itself and for the communities that live in those environments. Like, this is what I want to do, and I'm excited to be here. And then I realized that an ABE, that's one of the top 10 ranked programs in the nation, and Purdue just kind of became the perfect choice for that.
Well, that's awesome. And so I guess welcome to this week's episode where we're going to be discussing Purdue's Environmental and Natural Resources Engineering, which we might refer to as ENRE. Major. I'm one of your hosts, Calvin Given. I'm currently a grad student in electrical and computer engineering from Lakewood, Colorado.
And I'm your other host, Bryan and Calvin. I'm a sophomore in electrical engineering as well from Miami, Florida. And some things I do on campus are I'm involved in NESB, the Minority in Engineering program, and I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And this week we are joined by Maddie Milharcic.
Yes, and it's good to be here with all of you.
Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of what you do here on campus at Purdue?
Absolutely. So I am a senior in Environmental Natural Resources Engineering, also ENRE, because it's kind of a mouthful to say.
Yeah.
Not everyone knows that acronym, though, so I usually find myself saying, well, I am in Environmental and Natural Resources Engineering, which you kind of feel like you're rapping a little bit when you say it, which is just one of the perks of being in the major. Yes, so I now am doing classes full-time. I'm wrapping up some independent research with one of my professors in the department currently, and I am going to be interning over the summer with likely a civil engineering firm or a national lab. I'm doing a couple interviews right now, kind of in that process. And then I will be back come fall to finish up my degree, and I'll graduate in December.
That's awesome. That's
Congrats early on the
Yeah.
graduation.
Technically a semester late, but it's okay. No one cares. No one's counting.
Nope. And so how would you describe environmental and natural resources engineering? Like, are there concentrations in the major? What career paths could it lead to? Things to get involved in that are cool, like associated clubs?
Absolutely. So as far as ENRE goes with concentrations, oftentimes ENRE is considered a concentration within agricultural engineering. With the naming conventions, there can be confusion sometimes. So in my department in ag and bioengineering, there are 2 degree programs. There's biological engineering, the degree, and there's agricultural engineering, the degree. And then within that agricultural engineering, the degree, there are 2 majors. There's ag engineering, the major, and there's ENRE, the major.
Wow.
Yes. So when I graduate,
Not confusing at all.
no, right? Why would anyone ever be confused about that? So my piece of paper when I graduate will say Bachelor's of Science in Agricultural Engineering with a major in Environmental Natural Resources Engineering, which has been a lot of fun. I've gotten to take some classes from all over the department. So ag engineering and mechanical engineering are very similar in that ag engineering often deals with the mechanics of farm equipment or off-road equipment. There's a little more emphasis on bigger, more diesel type engines. I don't necessarily deal with that as an ENRE. I mostly look at chemistry and water, which I really enjoy those things, so it works out great. And then but I've also been able to take a couple classes within the mechanical engineering department as well as the civil engineering department and then ABE itself. So as far as getting a broad exposure while you're in ENRE, you certainly will do that, but it does kind of come back, especially while I'm a senior. Everything is really kind of tying itself together in the classes I'm in currently, which has been really rewarding and very enjoyable.
Yeah,
That's
so I
awesome.
guess my next question is, how did you decide to pursue ENRE instead of ag?
Yes, so I did have to kind of think about this for a second. When I was in FYE, everyone's faced with that choice of where do I go next? Because one of the unique things about ag and biological engineering is that we have a pre-ABE track. So you'll do FYE, but with basically the guarantee that you're headed into ABE after that. I did not do that, so I was really kind of exploring the differences between triple E, ENRE, and then ag engineering itself.
Yeah.
When I was looking at those differences, I kind of realized that Triple E was going to be more on point source mitigation. So point source pollution is when we know exactly where that pollution's coming from, and then how do we address that from there. ENRE deals a little more with non-point source pollution. So it's like we have pollution, but we're not entirely sure where it's coming from, but what do we do about it? And then as far as deciding the difference between ag engineering and ENRE, recognizing that I did ultimately want to come back to ecosystem restoration, environmental remediation, it just made more sense to do more classes that were going to align itself with that.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
and were there any specific things that being at Purdue in that first-year engineering program helped you make that decision, like the engineering your major sessions or something of the like?
Yes, I did attend EYM sessions for all of those, and having gone after the EYM session for ABE, I was like, this is where I want to go. I want to be part of this department. It is a smaller department on campus, so I like to say it's a small school feel with big school resources.
Yep.
And I just really enjoyed that. Some people call it like there's like a really tight-knit community over there. All of my professors know me by name, which on one hand is super great. On the other hand, it's like, oh, I really got to get my assignments turned in and do well on them.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely like to, when families come and ask me, okay, why didn't you choose a smaller school that's very well known in Colorado? Why'd you choose Purdue over that one? And I said, it's easy to make a big school feel small, whether that's involvement with the clubs, organizations, just the fact that you're in a major that is inherently smaller than the university as a whole, than it is to make the small school have the resources of that big school, because they just don't have quite the same number of connections and industry partnerships and all those kind of things.
Certainly.
Yeah, and then I guess my next question will be in these, what are some of your favorite courses you've taken and why?
Yes, so there's 3 specific courses I want to talk about. The first one is ABE 325, which is Water and Soil Conservation Engineering. The words in that title may be different than what I said, but essentially that's it. It's water, soil, conservation, and engineering resources to that. So a lot of courses in your degree program, you'll get to take like a number of courses that could fulfill that selective, but for ABE 325, you have to have that specific course. It's considered core to our curriculum. And in that one, you get a broad exposure to all kinds of tools used in industry, from computer programs like ArcGIS and Civil 3D to very practical skills such as surveying. We got to go out in a creek one day, an Indian Creek, over at one of the little parks near campus, and put our hip waders on and get into the stream and measure stream flow velocity in several different ways.
Cool.
That was really enjoyable. So I think that one has been one of my absolute favorites, because it really showed me like what a career in environmental engineering could look like. And it very much reaffirmed for me that I enjoyed it and this is where I wanted to be.
Yeah, and so is that common with a lot of the coursework, where you're actually going out and doing things that you might be doing on an actual job, like measuring that velocity of the stream?
I'd say definitely as you get into those upper class level courses, I would agree with that. And one of the courses I'm in right now, which is one of the other ones I wanted to bring up, ABE 425, which is water quality engineering. We will be planning on using our lab time later in the year to do field trips and go out and see different sites and talk about remediation. So just beyond reading a textbook or listening to a lecture, they really want to tie it home and show us what's actually going on, and as best they can, give us experience doing that.
Awesome. And then what was the third class you wanted to focus?
The third class I wanted to focus on is ABE 305. So this class is called Properties of Biological Materials, which if you're like materials engineering, it's kind of a little exposure to that. But I really enjoyed this class because for our final project, we got to go and design an experiment and then complete that experiment. And my friends and I wanted to discuss the rheological properties of honey. Basically, so we wanted to test its viscosity. We wanted to know how it flowed, like, essentially. And we wanted to see if there was any correlation between honey and its sugar content, and see if we could draw any conclusions from that.
Wow.
We had some design flaws, so a lot of our conclusions were, I think we needed to do this step different. That would, or really kind of expand our 4-week study over like maybe a 4-month study or even longer than that. But we had a lot of fun. We got to go use equipment in the flex labs. So we got to go put on our lab coats and our goggles and sit in the studio with all these other grad students. And as juniors, this was super fun to be like, oh my gosh, we're real scientists. We're really like, we came up with this, we're doing it, we're getting our measurements. Hopefully we'll draw some conclusions. And then we presented our results at the end of that. That class has also been nicknamed the corn physics class, because it's dealing with a lot of like biological materials such as corn and soybeans. That was one of my other favorites as well.
Oh,
that's
sounds
really cool.
Awesome.
And I know you mentioned the Flex Lab space. I assume that's probably a research-oriented space for ABE. Are there any other lab spaces that you get access to and can take advantage of while you're at Purdue in ENRE?
Certainly. So we got Flex Lab access because my professor who taught that class, Dr. Ambrose, has a lab over there. I believe many different departments use space in Flex Labs. In ABE itself, their old building was built in the 1900s sometime, and then they added on a 4 to 5 story addition that is like less than 2 to 3 years old. So it's a very
newest. Actually, no longer the newest building on campus because we're sitting in Dudley and Lambertus, but what are the newest engineering buildings on campus?
It's very nice. It's one of Purdue's best kept secrets. We have a little coffee shop over there and some great study spaces.
Wow.
And all of the conference rooms are unlocked, so as long as no one's using it, you can just sit in a conference room and do your work, and it's very peaceful over there. I do recommend visiting it, even if you're not in ABE. Yes, but on all of those basically above the first floor, all of the space is either a conference room or a lab. And on the third floor, I've gotten involved with some research over there in the ecosystem science lab, where there's a lot of student involvement in ABE. And in there, I personally had experience with collecting stream flow data and stream samples, where there are 2 sites around Lafayette where me and a partner went out and we collected data from a device called an ISCO, which I believe stands for something, but I never learned what it stood for.
Okay, well, what does the device do then?
Yeah, so it basically looks like a big old donut, and there's like 20 some odd bottles that fit in a circle around it.
Okay.
And the device has a straw that goes down into the stream, and then every other day, it would pull up a sample from the stream and store it in the ISCO. So then we would go every week and collect the samples and put in empty sample bottles. And then I would go back to the lab and I would filter that and then dry. So we wanted to look for total suspended solids, as well as prepare samples to be analyzed for things like nitrogen content and phosphorus content, which are 2 of the most potent pollutants, especially in an ag dominant community.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I remember we were talking about how close-knit ag was, and I guess on that, how are the professors that you dealt with, and like I guess any of the professors you liked in particular, and like what separated them from other professors?
Absolutely. I think I've mentioned already that being in ABE, every professor I've had is able to recognize me or know me by name, which is a double-edged sword, and it's net good. It is net good. And then, yes, so being able to get help, in my experience, has been really easy in the Ag and Bio department. For example, in ABE 305, I was really struggling with a certain concept called a Moore circle, if you've ever had to do one of those.
I don't think I personally have.
Either.
That's good. At least that's not what I enjoy about engineering, right? There's other things we like and there's things we don't like.
Yep.
But I needed to know this concept before an exam coming up, so I reached out to Dr. Ambrose and I asked if we could meet outside of office hours where he could just kind of explain to me again how this works and what that does. And so he and our TA sat down with just me. We found an independent time, and he went up to a whiteboard and he drew it out and he was explaining the math and explaining how to use it. And that was a moment where I knew, I was like, these people really care about my learning. They care about my quality of life here, and they care about my success, which is really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like even in the bigger majors like electrical and computer engineering or mechanical engineering, it takes a little bit more effort to make the professor know you, because they are larger class sizes. But it's definitely possible that I've had professors beg me to go to their office hours because no one's showing up for the hour that they have to set aside to talk with students. And so you really just have to take advantage of the opportunities to connect with your professors in any major that you're in if you want to make that connection.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I started going to office hours probably my sophomore year, but I should have started freshman year.
Yep. And then I guess you've talked about a few projects. Are there any projects or your research that you're doing independently right now, or clubs that are associated with ENRE that you'd want to highlight or think would be good for people to know about?
I'd love to. So I'll go through a few. So ENRE itself doesn't have any exclusive clubs. The department does have the American Society for Ag and Biological Engineering Purdue chapter, which is ASABE. And ASAB as a whole will put on national conferences that are really worth going to. I was able to go to the one in Omaha back in 2023. So getting involved with the student chapter is enjoyable. It's a great professional development club as well. And then more open to other people. So a lot of clubs are available to any Purdue student, regardless of what you major, but there can tend to be a pull. Like if you're already doing your coursework in that, you may have more of a bent to go towards one of those clubs. So some of those would be Environmental Science Club, which I have not had the time to get involved with, but I love their emails. They're great. And then the PUP Club, which stands for Purdue Utility Project, is what I'm currently doing my capstone project with. So the PUP Club is partnered with a bunch of different international communities. Specifically, we're partnering with a community in Eldoret, Kenya, called the Tumaini Innovation Center. The Tumaini Innovation Center, their tagline is Jenga Vijana, which is Swahili, and I apologize to any Swahili-speaking friends if I really messed up that pronunciation, but it means build the youth. So their goal is to provide an education for young adults, so that 16 to 25-year-old range. They'll be there for about a year. They get free housing, free food, and an education that teaches them a trade skill or a marketable skill, whether that be hairdressing, cooking, electrical, welding, as well as some interpersonal skills, so they don't just go out to the world and they have a skill, great, but they actually know what to do with that as well. One of their big sources of income is renting out these utility carts, which if you picture kind of a really rough golf cart or a gator, if you've ever driven one of those, they're built out of essentially what you can find in a junkyard or reclaimed parts. And this was a club that was started several years ago, I believe in 2017. I may have my dates wrong on that. And some students from Purdue built these carts and built them in Kenya, and the center's been using them ever since. So back in 2023, I was able to go with the club to Kenya, where we were able to service those carts and get them operating and running again. And we were added electrical systems to them so that they could be rented out. The Kenyan government was like, hey, if you're not going to use these as ag vehicles, they need to be road legal. Because oftentimes the students there would drive them to go to football games. Or we would call it soccer, but football. And then they also like to use them for hauling, because the community around Eldoret is very agricultural heavy. And so hauling materials to and from the farm to the market is really important. Our capstone project in the Pup Club right now is to convert one of those carts to an electric driveline or an electric powered system. The fuel costs in Kenya are on the rise, and the Kenyan government is pushing for more and more electrification. So essentially our project is going to serve as a seed project to begin getting that process going of what does electric powered vehicles for the 2 Mining Innovation Center look like. And it's also going to solve some issues, like the noise and vibration of the carts is quite strong. We have several prototypes here at Purdue that I've gotten to even drive before, and I can imagine that driving that thing for more than 15 minutes would be very noisy and very uncomfortable. So glad to be of service in that way. But that's a project. So I'm doing it for a capstone, but we also have a club that meets weekly, and the people are welcome to come and join and help do the work with that as well.
That's really cool.
It's beautiful you're able to combine both service and engineering and to create something that you love. And then I guess my next question is, just as a student, what's your student life like here at Purdue, whether that's on campus, off campus? Like, what do you like to do?
Ooh, okay, this is a fun question. So that, I think, has changed semester to semester depending on class schedule. So I'm pretty sure we've all had that class semester or semester where we've basically just been doing schoolwork, and every once in a while we wave hi to our friends. I am not in a semester like that, very thankfully. So right now I've been able to do things like enjoy the co-rec, where I've been able to go weekly rock climbing with some friends, kind of take advantage of being a Purdue student while I have that access right now. And then I love to run, so I did the Purdue half marathon last October with one of my roommates. And then I think there's a group of us who are going to try and do the Indy Mini come May. So that should be a lot of fun. I need goals to achieve things. And so if I want to consistently run every day, then I need a goal of like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Need a race at the end.
Yes.
You ever going to end up doing a full marathon?
I would love to. I would really very much love to. It's on the mind. I was hoping to do it this semester, but then I started to have a leg injury, and then kind of didn't want to add on the volume of running that I was going to need to do. It's like, you know what? I'm young. I've got time to do this. I'm not going to hurt myself in the process.
Well, that's fun. Usually we have people who are interested in running. Both Bryan and I run. And I ask, you want to do marathons? And they're like, no. That's way too far. That's kind of what I've switched to after. Well, I started in track as a sprinter in middle school, then went to cross country, and now I just guess I keep getting longer and longer distance oriented.
Okay, I'm not a sprinter, so I like to run fast if I do it for like 30 seconds. So I'm okay with that long distance time, but good for you.
But yeah, the marathons are really fun. Would recommend doing one if you get the chance.
Hey, okay, that's the goal. That is the goal. And then, so I do a lot with Purdue Bible Fellowship, too. I've been elected as their vice president, so that's something I really love getting involved in. We do a lot of community service, a lot of community building activities, which is a lot of fun, too. And then I know for myself personally, I can't start my day without waking up and spending some time reading my Bible. It's just the way I like to get my day going personally. And that's been very special for me, especially in this semester where I have time to not have to rush through that too. It's been really great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
That's really cool. And so is there opportunities to engage in, I guess, any faith on campus?
Absolutely. Yes. So we, I believe, have over 1,000 student organizations, and many of them are religious. So depending on what religion you are, I haven't done a lot of exploration as far as other religions, but I do know that they exist. I do know that there's availability for that on campus. So grateful to have a space where we can observe our religious practices.
Yeah, and I know everyone at Purdue is super tolerant. They're not going to shove anything down your throat, which is something that's really cool and unique. And there's a ton of churches on and around campus for any denomination of religion. And so just wanted to plug that in there. And I guess let's ask one of the last questions we have for you. How has Purdue satisfied your love for environmental and natural resources engineering and help prepare you for your future looking forward when you graduate in December?
Yes. I believe the couple of ways that it has satisfied that is the connections I've had within ABE. Those are going to be really valuable. I'm looking ahead. I really would like to start grad school in the fall of 2026. So as I begin to assemble my plan for applications come this summer, it's really helpful to have those connections and to be able to sit down with faculty that have had experience in either mentoring their grad students or just finished grad school themselves and be like, these are the things you're going to want to know based off of where you want to go. That's invaluable. And then as far as satisfying it while I'm here, the field experience I've gotten has been awesome. I've interviewed with a couple of different firms who are like, would you be okay with doing the field work? It's like, I would absolutely be okay with doing the field work. Maybe 20 years down the road, I'll pivot to more of like, just put me in the office somewhere. But right now it's like, I want to go get my hands dirty with something. So I've had the opportunity to do that. With a lot of different classes too. We all have to take a soil science class too, where we like physically have to like go in and feel the soil itself and tell what texture it is. So if you're looking to get very hands-on, ENRE is a fun way to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Maddie, for your insights. We really enjoyed having you on the podcast today. And I guess one last question I have for you, or our last question that I have for you is, what's a piece of advice that you could give an incoming freshman looking at Purdue engineering?
Certainly.
Yeah, what's one thing that you wish you knew coming in?
One thing I wish I knew is don't compare yourself. There are so many amazing students at Purdue that have already done so many things in engineering. And when I was looking around as a freshman, be like, I don't have a startup company. I don't really have any competition or hackathon awards. I kind of know how to code, and that's kind of where that ends. But you belong here. There's a space for you, regardless of that prior knowledge or skill. And the students that have that experience, that's awesome. That's good for them. But don't compare yourself. Just enjoy where you're at and know that you belong here.
That's awesome. I think that's amazing.
That's beautiful piece of advice.
And so I guess that concludes this week's episode. Couldn't think of a better way to end it. As always, please reach out to the Office of Future Engineers if you have any further questions.
And we will see you guys next week.